So I have my favorite little book here by William Bucan. This is the 1823 copy, which was published after he died. He died in 1805, born in 1729. Here's a picture in the text. I like it. It's kind of a gory-esque little photo. Compare and contrast that with the illustrious one that you see in Wikipedia. He's more of a founding father kind of. But in pouring through this, I happened to see how much he understands of public health, and not just public health, but of the psychology of people, of the public. He has a section here on inoculation and people's reaction to it, their distrust of it. And what's really struck me over the years that I've been pouring through this is how people don't change, is how the things that made us sick 200 years ago are still making us sick today. One of his big things is prevention, is making sure that people have access to clean clothes, to clean air, to clean water. In a section on smallpox, he remarks upon going into what he calls an apartment, but it's really just a hospital room, and seeing 40 children with smallpox literally stuck together from the effluent. I can only imagine what that looked like, what that felt like, what that smelled like. So in his words here in the preface, before we get to the part about do your own inoculations and the reaction of people and his own belief about that, and to counterpoint that with COVID, this is day 434 of me staying basically at home. You know, I'll go out, we'll go for a walk in the park, but there's been no movies, there's been no concerts. I have 3 tickets and I don't even remember who. I think Tool, Ween, and I don't know. Today we drove by the movie theater and the posters for Boss Baby Coming Soon were still up. It was creepy, it was eerie, it was discomforting. So the preface, page 9, here in his own words. Though we have endeavored to point out the causes of diseases and to put people upon their guard against them, yet it must be acknowledged that they are often of such a nature as to admit of being removed only by the diligence and activity of the public magistrate. We are sorry indeed to observe that the power of the magistrate is seldom exerted in this country, or any others, for the preservation of health. The importance of a proper medical police is not understood or little regarded. Many things highly injurious to the public health are daily practiced with impunity, while others, actually necessary for its preservation, are entirely neglected. Some of the public means of preserving health are mentioned in the general prophylaxis, as the inspection of provisions, widening the streets of great towns, keeping them clean, supplying the inhabitants with wholesome water, etc. But they are passed over in a very cursory manner. And while we have things, like food inspection and departments of transportation, it's nowhere near the close that he had, where people would dump their middens out into the street at a certain time, and that's what you would have to walk in to get your food to play in as a child or whatever. We still have an egregious lack of mandates for making sure people are healthy in this country. Where GoFundMe is how we survive while still paying taxes. There's something to be said about that. So we will stop this at 4:40, however long this is, and then make a part 2, smallpox on inoculation. Apparently, this do-it-yourself part is so, impressive for some people that this made it to the wiki. However, getting yourself a copy of this book, I highly recommend, because there's a wealth of knowledge in here, and just attitude. His beliefs about how children should be raised. He starts out the book talking about children because he understands literally that that's the future. In our town, because of COVID, our schools have been closed. And it's frustrating on the one hand because some are open and some are closed and you don't know how fast to drive. Do you drive 20 miles an hour? Do you drive 25 miles an hour? And there's also construction sites. This bittersweet thing about seeing these construction sites is it shows how shabby our schools were. We've got these gorgeous, multi-level buildings next to these squat little dingy things that kind of look like a pound by comparison. And before that, people just accepted it. People said, all right, this is how we're going to run society. This is how we're going to progress as a society. Why are children shooting each other in our schools? Why are there so many homeless? Why are there, so many despondents? I bet he would have a hell of a lot to say seeing our country now. And then I bet he would probably go cry for about 6 days because so much has been achieved, yet so much has been completely ignored. He knew this. He knew that it's important to have, access to clean clothes, clean food, good medicine, proper shelter, all of these things he talks about. And we still can't wrap our heads around that. We're okay with seeing, today I saw a woman begging on the side of the street with her 2 daughters. And I can imagine what it felt like for her in her heart, but also for her 2 daughters to have to stand there in a hailstorm. And here he talks about people begging with, holding infants in their hands, their arms encrusted with smallpox. His point for that little anecdote was he doesn't think it's the cold weather that, contributes to the smallpox. It's probably the pox itself. But I digress. Anyway, part 2.